A horrible, terrible injustice has been committed. The Russ Joy Show TikTok, definitely not YouTube. We're going to cover that. The Russ Joy Show TikTok, it was banned illegally, actually. It was banned, shut down, prevented from being shown on Chinese TikTok as of September the 4th, 2025. A great day, but a day that will live in infamy. They banned the TikTok account. Why did they ban it? No one seems to know. No one at TikTok responds. They said 7 days. It'll take 7 days to let you know if your account is back. 7 whole days to know if your account will ever be unbanned, folks. And I waited 7 days, many days, in fact, more than 7. I waited, I believe, 10 days, maybe even longer. It could have been 11, maybe 12. It was quite a few days. And there was no word from Chinese TikTok. They didn't tell me if the account was coming back. But back it is, baby. We got the news. The account is back. And so is the Russ Joy Show. The flu is gone. Go to hell, flu. Hit the music. Welcome into the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. The flu is either gone or is on the way out of here. Get the hell out of here, flu. I have been taken down by the flu for many days since last week. And I did a show on Friday and I started feeling like death. And legitimately, as soon as the show was over, my wife said, "Why did you do a show? You look like death. You sound like death." And then I realized I might actually be dead. And then I said, "Wait a second. I don't think I'm dead yet." And then I was very happy to still be alive. And I took a deep breath and I said, "Yeah, I'm going to go lay down." And I stayed in bed, more or less, from Friday evening until early Sunday afternoon. I don't know how the hell I got the flu in September. I don't know why the flu decided that September is a good time for it. It's not. I had plans. I was going to smoke like 60 chicken wings for, ahead of Eagles Chiefs. I was very excited. And then I was like, oh, we're going to do a big show on Monday. Monday's show is going to be great. Eagles Chiefs. We're going to have to break it down. I'm sure people are upset about the Tush push. And what happens? The flu happens. And I was going to do a show yesterday, or 2 days ago, Monday, and I still didn't feel right. And I almost did a show yesterday, and I said, you know what? What's the point? You come back on Wednesday, you get hyped up, you get the people hyped up, and there's even more to talk about today. There's so many things to talk about. And it's a wonderful Wednesday. And I want to say hi to everybody, and we're going to drop the comments down here, bottom right. Start pulling up some of the ones that we've seen already. You can join the conversation over on the Russ Joy Show YouTube, on the Joy Media YouTube, over on Twitter at JoyOnBroad. Remember, you have to click the video, go into old Periscope mode, and you can drop a comment there. You can also follow along over on Facebook on the Russ Joy Show and Joy Media Facebook channels as well. By the way, TikTok is back. Thank goodness. I mean, I don't know what led to TikTok banning the Russ Joy Show. I don't know what happened, okay? It's not like there were 300,000 followers over on TikTok on the channel, okay? I don't know what happened. I don't know why it happened. I blame Video Guy Amadeo, but I don't actually know why TikTok banned the account. And then I was, I see this thing, 7 days. So that'll take 7 days. We'll get back to you in 7 days. I'm like, all right, cool. Didn't take 7 days. And then I figured out a back channel way to submit a second appeal. And the next day, boom, channel's unbanned. I'm like, oh, that's good. Okay. But TikTok is where we actually brought in a good number of subscribers to the YouTube channel. So I don't know. I guess it works. It's worth having around. So now that Video Guy Amadeo is out of TikTok jail, now that we're all out of TikTok jail, I'm happy to be back over there. And it's a good day. And I'm actually feeling pretty tired now from that intro. And I might need to sit down. But sit down I will not. Now, if I go down, I passed out. Someone call the authorities. or my wife. Somebody just let my wife know that I have now fainted on the floor because I don't think she's watching right now. She's working. But then again, a lot of you are probably working too, and you're watching, and well, thank you. Thank you for that. All right. There's a lot of stuff going on in Philadelphia sports and beyond. We have so much to get to. Now, I did a rundown on a show like a week or two ago, and then I didn't hit half the stuff, and then I felt really bad. So I am going to give you a basic rundown of today's events, right? There's a ton of Tush push discourse. We're going to talk about that. There's a little note about inside the NBA and the NBA Finals. We might get to that. If you're a Flyers fan, today's a good show for you. We have to talk about Ivan Fedotov getting traded. Carter Hart apparently given a one-finger salute off to the Philadelphia Flyers in any pursuit or hopes of a pursuit of a reunion. Oh, and of course, then you also have some other stuff going on. I don't know if you saw it. Joel Embiid's skinny now. Adam Schefter carried water for the NFL. Bill Cowher proved to be Bill Coward when it came to the Tush push. There's a whole lot of other stuff that I want to get to as well. But first, I'm going to go out to the comments, say hi to some people, and then we're going to go on with the show. I think I remember how to do this. It's been a while. Chris Freed asks, does Russ eat some tubular crow meat while giving Dave Dombrowski his deserved flowers? Well, Chris Freed, it's a good question. Am I prepared to give Dave Dombrowski his flowers? It is a question that has been asked. No. Dave Dombrowski doesn't get his flowers yet. Now, if the Phillies win a World Series, will Dave Dombrowski get his flowers? Maybe. But let's be very careful here with how much adulation we provide to Dave Dombrowski. Shall we? We can all give a lot of kudos to Dave Dombrowski for the Juan Duran trade. We all agreed at the time. Best available reliever on the market, throws absolutely electric stuff, under contract for multiple seasons. That's a home run of a trade. No one's arguing it. There was not a better option available in the offseason, spring training, whatever. He was the best possible arm they could have added to the bullpen. We gave the tip of the cap. We actually gave Dave Dombrowski some flowers at that point. We didn't get him like the signature bouquet, but we gave him at least like the mid-tier bouquet, right? If you go to Wegmans has good flowers. If you go to Wegmans, there's like the skimpy bouquet. There's like this one. There's like the medium one. There's the locally sourced ones that have like the brown paper around them. There's like the signature bouquet, and then there's like something else. When I go to Wegmans, I tend to drop some nice money on getting my wife flowers. It's either the top or very close to the top bouquet every time. And if my kids say, Daddy, what about those flowers? No, those are the cheap flowers. Your mom deserves better than that. Dave Dombrowski doesn't deserve better than that. But for the Duran trade, we did give him some flowers. We said, hey, fella, good job. You may have like kind of screwed the pooch on this one a little bit. Romano was a total flop and failure. Alvarado getting himself suspended wasn't Dombrowski's fault. But we did say like not good enough depth going into the season. But we gave him credit that he course corrected. But what's the other bit of flowers we're supposed to give to Dave Dombrowski? And I want to promise, I didn't intend on starting with like a quasi-negative tone here. But Chris Freed, if you're going to try to make me seem like some kind of an asshole, I'm going to push back respectfully. I will push back. Harrison Bader has been a revelation. Harrison Bader has been not just a guy who has risen above expectations, he has smashed them out of the park. That is not a representation on Dave Dombrowski. You could say, oh, Dave Dombrowski. Hold on, let's do it.
Dave Dombrowski really saw something special in Harrison Bader and must have realized there's a great opportunity here for Harrison Bader to come in and make himself pretty much a fixture in the starting outfield for the Phillies. And I bet you Dave Dombrowski knew that Harrison Bader was going to hit like over 300 and have a double-digit extra base hits and hit for power and also be a terror on the base paths. Dave Dombrowski knew it all. He was playing 7D chess, baby.
No. Dombrowski might have seen some value along the margins with Harrison Bader. But like when Dombrowski brought him into town, you didn't see Dave like puff out the chest and say, oh, no, you dumbasses think this is just a depth signing? You think this is just a guy who's supposed to be at least marginally better than Max Kepler? Oh, no. I just brought you 75% of Mike Trout in his prime, baby. Let's go. Dombrowski did not say that. Now, in fairness, I wouldn't expect him to. Bader's never been that guy. But like Bader far outperforming expectations is not a reflection to me on Dave Dombrowski. It's more a reflection on Harrison Bader and his ability to not overthink things, to not grip that bat too tight, to not feel the need or fail in the crippling stress and the crippling weight of expectations of being the quote-unquote big bat brought in at the deadline. Harrison Bader has been an absolute godsend for this team. We will give Dombrowski the flowers in that, like, all right, you found this guy, you identified this guy, and he's been an absolutely fantastic player. But Harrison Bader's still Harrison Bader. He's been very good. He's been significantly better than expected. He has now gotten himself a hell of a lot more money, which we detailed last week, like mutual option at the end of the year. I think he's owed $6 million. There's no chance he's picking up his end of the bargain there, right? So he's probably going to get double-digit millions a year on a multi-year deal. Good for him. Hopefully it's here. He seems like a legitimate good dude. They're wearing shirts that say, what a gift, with Harrison Bader looking up at the sky, looking up at the clouds, looking up at where he descended from. Because make no mistake about it, Harrison Bader didn't fly in on a private jet or fly in commercial at the trade deadline to become a Philadelphia. No. He descended from heaven. The clouds parted, and Harrison Bader came down ever so slightly, ever so gently. His luscious blonde curls blowing gracefully in the breeze, gently wafting back and forth. The headband on there nice and tight. The dude looks like he's straight out of the 90s. He looks like he's out of Ken Griffey baseball for N64. He's a bona fide stud, and he has been a godsend to this team, but I will not give into some kind of revisionist history that this was a masterstroke by Dave Dombrowski. Let's be real, okay? Okay. But things are going well in Phillies land. We have to talk about what happened last night. I'll get back out to the comments in a second. I've lost the plot. Everything is just crazy now. Fawcett says it's a new man crush. It's not a new man crush. I'm just saying, like, Harrison Bader, dude looks like a baseball player. If you had to draw up, what does a baseball player look like? When you, like, if you were like me and you were a kid in the 90s, if you had to, like, do a little drawing of, like, what does a professional baseball player look like? He looked like Harrison Bader. Physically, he looks like Harrison Bader, right? There's a certain, like, caricature of that strong upper body dude, the flowing hair, looks like he's a lot of, he's a guy you have a lot of fun with. That's Harrison Bader. He just kind of like fits that stereotype. You could just as easily put Harrison Bader next to like Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, and the like. Now, he's not going to be nearly as big because he ain't on the roids. But like if you dropped Harrison Bader, if you photoshopped him into a team from like, I don't know, the 93 Phillies, you dropped him into like an early 2000s, you put him in like the background of a team that has Jim Thome front and center, like I would totally believe that Harrison Bader belonged in that time. I do. I believe it could happen. Why not? He's been awesome. I like Harrison Bader a lot. Is that a man crush? No. I just appreciate the fact that there's like a dude they brought into town who has exceeded expectations in a significant way, and the guys in the clubhouse seem to really like. See, this is the whole thing. We talked about the vibes. Last year we talked about the vibes. This year we talked about how for long stretches of the season, the vibes looked like they were gone and everybody was mopey and sad and indifferent and there were all kinds of questions. Is Kyle Schwarber going to leave because they're going to underperform again? All that stuff. It's all been wiped away. And like Duran is a big part of it, right? Because like everybody's mind is no longer focused on, wow, if we don't have a starter go 7 innings, we are boned. That's gone. Oh, we've got to give the ball to Romano in the 9th inning. We're fucked. That's gone. Jose Alvarado, suspended. Can't play in the postseason. Well, he's gone too. But Duran has been awesome. No one's going to debate it. Bader's been awesome. Good for him. We're all thrilled. I think the shirts are great. I think the vibes are back. The vibes might even be better than ever. So good. We are very excited. Fawcett says he's got a solid base. So he's got like strong legs. Okay. Connor Buss says, everyone thank Master Bader. Exactly. He is the Master Bader. I bet out of all of the people that have ever played baseball in the Bader family, Harrison is the Master Bader. He is the number one. He is the best baiter in the entire family when it comes to baseball. He has to be. He's not like the, what's the name of when you're like starting in karate? Like the sensei's up here. There's what is it when you're like the karate kid, when you're the new student? Whatever that is. You're not, this guy is the master of it all. The Master Bader. He's a great guy. Harrison Bader, good for him. All right, anyway. We'll come back to this in a little bit. Oh, and Connor Buss says, do you mention the lavender accessories? That's another thing that pops. Maybe that's what it is. Who knows? Padawan. Padawan is also Star Wars, but we'll take it. Sure. Yeah, the young Padawan. Okay. Okay. We have to talk about what happened with the Phillies and the Dodgers late into last night. So I mentioned at the top of the show, had the flu. So I didn't have coffee from Friday until Tuesday morning-ish. I had an espresso. I did like one of my iced drinks, the base of which is espresso. Oh, I was up at 1 a.m. I was up watching the end of the Phillies game. I mean, it was technically a little bit before 1 a.m., but there was part of me, I was getting ready to tweet about how, like, I can't believe they got me to stay up this late only to blow this lead because, bullpen. And I was upset, 6-6. I was upset. And then I'm seeing like, oh, Bader could end up coming up to bat. Wouldn't that be a pretty good spot? He's been pretty damn clutch. Cool. And I felt like an asshole after the fact because I'm like, I didn't look at Marchan as a guy that like was going to be the one to deliver the back-breaking hit. But when that ball took off his bat, I'm like laying in bed. My wife is asleep. I'm trying to be very quiet. I'm very locked in on this Phillies game on my phone. And I like started having a seizure because I'm so excited. And then she kind of like half wakes up like, what's wrong? I'm like, it's okay. The Phillies just hit a 3-run home run in the 9th inning. And it's almost 1 a.m. Go back to sleep. I wasn't yelling, but it was very exciting. So you have this moment where you go, wow, what a cool moment. And how about the fact that Rob Thompson let Marchán in to hit there? Because you would think JT Realmuto would be the guy probably going to pinch hit. Why wouldn't you? Arguably the best catcher in baseball. One of the best catchers in baseball. Why wouldn't you have him go in? He's had some clutch hits of his own this season. Then you find out after the game that Realmuto was sick. He was ill. Now, was he just super, super hungover from the night before when the Phillies clinched the NL East at Dodger Stadium? Methinks that illness may have something to do with the hangover. But if he is ill, all the best to JT Realmuto. We hope you're feeling better. But there is a non-zero chance that maybe JT Realmuto had a few extra drinks and wasn't feeling so great the next day. And that's okay. We don't judge here at the Russ Joy Show. We say, good job, JT Realmuto. You helped this team win the NL East. You're going to hopefully help this team win a World Series. If you need to be ill for a day, you be ill for a day. Now, if he's actually sick, hopefully he doesn't have the flu that I had, because God help him, that's a horrible experience. We still wish JT Realmuto the very best. I don't know if he's back in the lineup for the next game or not. We'll find out soon enough. But Marchán just kind of highlights yet another one of the things that has made this Phillies team very, very different, and especially different since the trade deadline, and stands in stark contrast to the 2024 team. And so we need to all have a moment here where we acknowledge that you are allowed to feel one way about a team and then pivot how you feel about that team when the facts change. If you recall, take a trip down memory lane with me a little bit, shall you? Yes, you shall. Beginning of the season, first half of the season. What was I always talking about on this show? It felt like very much of the same team from 2024. They were afraid to mess with the vibes. Stubbs was sent down. Everybody's sleepwalking. Nothing looks that great. There's nothing that gives you that idea of there being a killer instinct. It doesn't feel like a galvanized team. People are more actively questioning Rob Thompson. It feels like we are heading on a crash course with an early playoff exit at best. And then some things start happening. And then the trade deadline happens. And that back end of the bullpen is solidified with Duran. And all of a sudden you feel a weight come off the shoulders of the team. And then over time, Bader starts hitting in a meaningful way. You see Brandon Marsh, who has really turned it on since the start of May. has been a much better guy at the plate. You've seen Nick Castellanos definitely go through his struggles, but he's found a way to contribute in a somewhat meaningful way on and off here for at least a few weeks. And you've even seen a resurgence of Max Kepler. Now, resurgence would also imply that there was at one point a surgence or something, and I don't know if there ever really was a getting off the ground and having a nice start to a season, but Kepler has also figured out a way to contribute. And then as this team started to face adversity, the Zach Wheeler thoracic outlet syndrome, being shut down for the season, Trey Turner hitting the IL, Alec Boehm hitting the IL, all of a sudden you started saying, we're going to figure out if this team is different or not. We're going to figure out if this team is the one from last year that played .500 baseball for the second half of the season and ultimately didn't have a killer instinct, couldn't put away the Mets, got their asses kicked in the playoffs by the Mets. We're going to see if it's that same team or something different. And what we have seen here, make no mistake about it, is a vastly different team. This is a team that has had to legitimately face adversity from a player personnel perspective, has had to face adversity in terms of expectations, had to lose some of that initial good vibes in the clubhouse in a Garrett Stubbs, and has now brought them back twofold because he brought Stubbs back, right? Late in the season, he gets brought back, and now you have this guy in Bader who very much seems to have fit perfectly into that clubhouse. You're watching a potential MVP or MVP level season out of Kyle Schwarber. You are seeing a Bryce Harper who, quite frankly, home run production-wise, is significantly ahead of where I would have expected him to be if you had told me he was going to be as injured as he has been at different stretches this season. And this rotation has figured out a way to continue to get things done, even with Zach Wheeler out. Oh, and by the way, Walker Buehler looks even better right now, and I'd probably trust Walker Buehler more than I would trust Aaron Nola. Oh, and by the way, Aaron Nola, every third start, puts together something that's at least remotely acceptable. Oh, and by the way, we'll just leave Taijuan Walker off to the side. But you're seeing guys also step up that you might not have expected to. And Marchan's one of them. That's not a guy that I would have expected a season ago to be taking an at-bat in a meaningful moment in a game. It's not a guy that I would have expected to see take a meaningful at-bat in a meaningful moment this late in the season. And yet he's the guy who delivers a 3-run blast to win the game last night. Now, Amadeo's right as well, pulling up Weston Wilson. Drunk Uncle David Robertson. I don't think he's a drunk uncle, but yeah, David Robertson coming back. I mean, these have been smart additions. Robertson was an especially smart one. It's just money. The quote came out yesterday or 2 days ago that Middleton's response to Dombrowski was, it's just going to cost us money? Of course. We're not getting rid of a prospect. Sure. Go pay Dave Robertson. That's worked out so far. Things are going well in Phillies land. We should all feel good about it. Let's keep feeling good about things. Let's feel good by soaking up the tears of the opposition. Let's take a second to soak in all of the hatred for the Philadelphia Eagles by the national media, by other fan bases. I just want us all to take a very brief moment and just remember what this feels like, because it is not every day that you are pretty much universally hated by the league and by many other teams and by many other fan bases for a football play that team owners were unable to outlaw this past offseason. And I want to start with a guy who I think has been one of the it is a sad downfall, because there was a time when people looked at Adam Schefter with respect. They looked at Adam Schefter with the thought that this guy can be trusted. This guy is impartial. This guy is just, he's the guy. And what we've seen over time is, especially, it feels like the last 12, 18 months, there's been this pushback on the insider, talking about Woj and about Shams, and Schefter's part of it, that to be that guy who's breaking the news so far ahead of time, you kind of, in a way, have to carry water for the league, maybe for player agents, for front offices, and everybody kind of sees through it now. There was a time where being the ultimate insider had a lot of respect to it, had a lot of prestige to it. Now I think a lot of people look at it and say, oh, this is the person who's shilling for the league and for front offices. And so Schefter went on to Get Up on Monday. And this is one of the most reprehensible appearances that I can remember a quote-unquote insider having in a long time. Because make no mistake about it, if I turn on ESPN or I turn on Fox or CBS or NBC when they're covering a game, I would expect a color commentator, likely a former player, to give their rationale for why they don't like a specific play. I could maybe see a former coach having an issue with a former play. If you want to hit me with like a Rex Ryan, you want to hit me with a Bill Cowher, you want to hit me with a Jimmy Johnson when he was available. You want to hit me with like a Nick Saban take on the game day set about the idea of what the tush push is. That'd be fine. But I don't necessarily need Adam Schefter's opinion on the tush push. But Schefter unleashed one of the dumbest, wildest, off-base comments I can remember an insider having. And so with that, we are going to go out really quickly, and we are going to talk about what Adam Schefter had to say because, again, I thought that this was horrifically, wildly, borderline stupidly off base. So we're going to go out here real quick to Adam Schefter talking about the Chiefs losing the game, but really, the Chiefs didn't lose on Sunday. This game was lost in March. Go ahead, Schefty. Tell them about it.
The biggest thing here to me is that this game was lost in March. This game was lost when the NFL owners refused to ban the tush push from happening. It wasn't lost yesterday. It was lost in March. And there might be a lot.
Oh, we're yucking it up, guys.
Oh, Schefter, you're just such a funny guy. You're hilarious, Schefter. Oh, yep. That's a good one there. Yep. It was lost in March.
When the NFL owners didn't ban it. I wonder where that line of thinking is coming from, because if you're this objective guy, you're the objective insider, should you be taking a side on yay to the tush push or nay to the tush push? One would say probably not. So where does this line of this game wasn't lost yesterday, this game was lost in March, where did that come from? Oh, I can think. Probably some front office executives and or owners and maybe some players that have talked to Adam Schefter. Put the little bug in his ear. And now he's going out on national TV and he's opining. All right, let's go back to Schefty.
The games that the Eagles play that are lost in March because this play is unstoppable. It not only does the defense not know how to handle it, but even the officials don't even.
Okay, let's start with that. The defense doesn't know how to handle it. They've been running the play since 2022. It's now checks wrist 2025. If you're a defense and you haven't figured out a way yet to try to mitigate the tush push, what the hell are you doing? If you have the Philadelphia Eagles on your schedule and you haven't put any kind of real thought or consideration into like, how do we stop this thing? I don't have to tell you. If you're a defensive coordinator and there's a chance that you're going to have to go up against this team again, I don't know what to tell you. The Chiefs and the Eagles have played more games against each other, years, right? In the regular season, they have played more regular season matchups in a row, consecutive years, than any NFC versus AFC team in NFL history. Steve Spagnuolo, you know the tush push is coming. You knew about it in Super Bowl 57. You watched your team lose in Super Bowl 59, where the tush push really wasn't much of a factor. You should kind of have a plan in place, right? Chris Jones, big mouth Chris Jones, who wanted to go out of his way, maybe we'll get to that in a little bit, wanted to go out of his way to complain at the end of the game when his team was about to lose. You would think that they would have maybe figured out a way to try to stop the tush push. All right, so defenses can't figure out how to stop it. Well, too bad. Perhaps your offense should work on figuring out a way to do one of their own. And maybe defenses wouldn't be able to figure it out against your offense either. Okay. But what else does he say? Officials. Okay.
Trying to handle it. You're seeing the Eagles linemen jump off sides every play, and nothing's called.
It's a false start.
So the officials have.
Oh, we got Teddy Bruschi. We got terrible Teddy Bruschi. He's over there. It's a false start. It's a false start. I don't hear you saying that, Teddy, all the time. I don't see it. How did he feel about Deflategate? How did he also feel about the tuck rule. How did he also feel about Spygate? He doesn't like to talk about Spygate, terrible Teddy. But he says false start. Okay.
No idea. Defenses have no idea. And the Eagles get to do whatever they want on every single play in the tush push. And again, I know people hate it, but they have mastered it. They have.
So, okay. We got to be honest. The tush push is going to get banned. There is not an Ice Cube's chance in hell that the tush push is allowed in 2026. I would even probably make the case that what the Eagles did against the Chiefs was so far beyond what they should have done with the tush push in that one specific regular season game on the game of the week, right, where it's the late afternoon Fox game with Tom Brady on the call, who doesn't exactly love the Eagles, right, because the Eagles did figure out a way to beat Tom Brady and Bill Belichick at Super Bowl 52, and it was beat by a backup named Nick Foles. Tom Brady called it out. I don't think Tom Brady was belligerently anti-Eagles. I know some people thought he was. I don't think Kevin Burkhardt is anti-Eagles. We know Dean Blandino hates the play. Dean Blandino says, I'm so done with the tush push. Not yet. You ain't done with it yet, Dean. Get ready for it the rest of the year, Dean.
I don't like the tush push. It's hard to officiate.
You ain't officiating it.
I don't like the tush push. It's just hard to see.
I don't care. You know what's funny to me? They're having this hard time spotting the ball. That seems to be like the genesis of a lot of the problems, right? They're saying the Eagles are lining up in the neutral zone, and that sometimes defensive linemen are also kind of lining up in the neutral zone. And is Cam Jurgens putting himself over the ball? Is he already in violation? Are we seeing both guards move too quickly? Is it a false start every play? Here's the thing. If this were true, if the Eagles have been having a false start on every tush push for the last 3 years, guess what would have happened at the owners' meetings? Guess what would have happened at the tush push vote? They would have said this play is not only unsafe, but it is almost impossible to officiate. Here is evidence of every tush push the Eagles have run since 2022. And here's photographic evidence of how many times the Eagles have either lined up improperly or have had a false start that has not been called on the play. This is an unfair play because officials can't officiate it. It would have gotten banned. They didn't take that line, which is why I find it so funny now that after week 2, after the Kansas City Chiefs are dropped to 0-2, and the Eagles win what is effectively a very ugly game, a defensive battle to some extent, maybe some questionable offensive game planning and play calling by the Eagles, and maybe by virtue of Patrick Mahomes not having his top 2 wideouts, perhaps by virtue of Travis Kelce letting a ball hit him in the hands in the end zone that goes the other way, perhaps because Patrick Mahomes misses a wide open receiver when Adoree Jackson rams into another one of his fellow players on the defense, and Patrick Mahomes misses a wide open bomb. Maybe those were also contributing factors to the Chiefs not putting up more points. But no, we're all focused on the tush push again this week. They're not going to ban it midseason, but it certainly will not be around in 2026. I can't even say that after watching Sunday's game, I'm going to be sad to see the play go. Yes, there is a competitive advantage. Yes, we can make the argument that it is something that every team can work on. I will also point you to, there's a story over on ESPN.com that did a fantastic job of breaking down how many other teams have tried to run the tush push. Obviously, it's hilarious that the team that is far and away the second highest tush push usage team in the league is the Buffalo Bills, whose head coach Sean McDermott was one of the most outspoken critics in trying to ban the play. I'm not going to be surprised that the tush push is gone. We all kind of expect it to be gone. But I am a little bit surprised that Schefter is the one carrying the water for the league and that he's the one carrying the water for these whiny owners and front office executives. Sorry, I just don't buy it. It's now disingenuous. And sorry, if you wanted to make the case that this play isn't safe based on the inability of officials to officiate, that's a whole other problem entirely. I would probably make the case that it should be somewhat worrisome to the NFL if all of the refs that they have can't figure out a way to officiate it. I will also point out the Eagles were screwed on one of the tush pushes where very clearly the ball broke the plane, right? It crossed the goal line. And Jalen Hurts had a ball in his arm, and you see the diagonal trajectory of the ball in his arm, and you can very easily figure out what the size of a football is. And even if you can't see the very tip of the football, you could tell, oh, football, crossed the plane, touchdown. They had to run the tush push again. They converted. Of course they did. I don't understand how this is such a complicated thing. I don't understand how ball placement is a complicated thing for the officials to officiate. I don't understand how we don't have a chip in the ball at this point. They eventually did one of like the digital spottings to show that it was like 4th and 6 inches or whatever. But like, man, it just feels like the technology's lagging behind in the NFL. I just don't fully get it. We're making a lot of excuses for a lot of people because we just don't like the play. That's it. All right. Ford says, Schefter is a nasty guy. A lot of people are saying it. Believe me, China. I like that he spelled it like the old pro wrestler, not the country. JH says, tush push D's nuts, you hack. Schefter has made an enemy of JH. Not what you thought. Connor Buss with an interesting question. Why not do a defensive tush push to counteract the force or hit the weight room? I don't know. How the hell would you do a defensive tush push? I mean, like the linebackers are going to shove the defensive lineman? I don't know if that would work. I mean, remember, who was the player? It was a Washington player who tried to vault himself over the line 2 or 3 times. No, it was 3 or 4 times, right? So much so that the officials said if the player tries it again, the Eagles will be awarded a touchdown. We all remember that. Listen, the play's not going to be around in 2026, so enjoy it while we have it, I guess. KDub1323 says, Schefter is Exhibit A for never wasting your time watching any of the national talk shows. Kind of hard to argue. I do want to go out to somebody who, made it to the pinnacle of sport, is a Super Bowl champion coach. But Bill Cowher, I was kind of shocked in a way that he poo-pooed all over the tush push as well. And so we'll give Bill Cowher a little bit of respect here as a Super Bowl champion coach. We're not going to spend a lot of time assessing what he had to say. But Cowher went over onto Dan Patrick's show. And I just want you to hear really quickly why Bill Cowher hates the play. Not that it should matter, but I guess it kind of does a little bit.
Your thoughts?
Well, I've been against the play for 2 years, and I've made my feelings quite known. It's not a football play. It's a scrum. You know, and they had that in rugby, Dan.
Here we go. So the rugby idea, okay.
And you know what they did in rugby? They eliminated the scrum. They took it out because it wasn't a safe play. But we keep it in the NFL. Make sense of that one. They got rid of it.
See, I'm not even going to continue to give that argument oxygen, though. Here's the problem if you're Bill Cowher. All right, you want to say it's a scrum play, it's a rugby play. They got rid of it in rugby because it wasn't safe, blah, blah, blah. It's an unsafe play. No one was able to bring data to the NFL owners' meetings to show how this is a dangerous play, to be able to show direct correlation between the tush push and significant injury. Now, is it possible that somebody could get seriously hurt on tush push? I guess. You know how else somebody could get seriously hurt playing football? Virtually any other kind of football play. Perhaps somebody gets hit going across the middle, a hit on a defenseless receiver. Somebody gets dragged down and their ankle gets stuck under a 300-pound lineman and bends the wrong way and their ankle snaps. They snap a femur. They get concussed. Just saying. Throwing it out there for everybody. There's so many ways you could get hurt playing football. Does anybody think it's the mousecapades? It's an old Bundy story about Hitchcock.
It's not the mousecapades.
What do you think it is? It's football. Now, again, you don't like the play. You think it looks like a rugby play. Fine. You can have that argument. But it's just wild. It is wild how many people are willing to bend over backwards to hate on this play. Whatever. I guess it's fine. There was one other thing that I wanted to get to from that Eagles-Chiefs game. And this was actually kind of cool. Just from the perspective of like, we knew this was going to be a highly watched game, but I don't think anybody knew how highly watched Eagles-Chiefs was going to be. Fox put this out, and this honestly kind of blew my mind. I want to take the comments in here for a sec. Eagles-Chiefs, the Super Bowl rematch, right? Week 2, late afternoon window, the game of the week on Fox, had 33.8 million viewers. 33.8 million people tuned in to watch Hurts and the Eagles versus Mahomes and the Chiefs in week 2 of the regular season. They noted here that it's Fox's best ever regular season Sunday telecast ever. Think about how long Fox has been doing NFL Sundays. The best ever regular season Sunday telecast, most watched NFL week 2 telecast on record, and the most watched September or October game ever, period, done, end of story. Should we necessarily be surprised that this matchup resonated with fans? No, I mean, ultimately it's a Super Bowl rematch. And it was a game that had a lot of intrigue because the Chiefs came in at 0-1 and it seemed kind of inconceivable that they would start 0-2. And at the same time, you have this Eagles team that just seemingly can't lose games where Jalen Hurts starts and ends the game. So it's been pretty wild. Let's go over. So there was that. Here you go. Chris Freed says, no comment on the Wentz wagon taking hold in Mini. There is a very good chance with J.J. McCarthy out that you could end up getting the Eagles against Carson Wentz and the Vikings, and that would be a lot of fun. I will tell you, I know a lot of people still want to poo-poo Carson Wentz, and they still want to dunk on Carson Wentz, make fun of Carson Wentz, and Lord knows there are plenty of things that you can, I guess, clown Carson Wentz for. I'm not going to mock Carson Wentz. I'm not going to actively root against Carson Wentz. I don't want to watch his downfall. Carson Wentz was never a terrible human being to the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, there are some rumors out there that maybe he didn't take Nick Foles finding success and leading the team to a Super Bowl the way that you would want your locker room leader to. And yes, maybe there is a question about whether or not Wentz was really meant to be a locker room leader at all. But I'm not going to hold it against the guy. Ultimately, the Eagles won a Super Bowl. They went back to another one and ultimately lost to the Chiefs in 57. They beat the Chiefs in 59. They just beat the Chiefs in the regular season. Carson Wentz is on his, 6th team in 6 years or whatever. Look, I'm not going to crap on Carson Wentz. You can't get me to do it. I hope the guy finds some success in this league. Obviously not against the Eagles. I'm not poo-pooing on Carson Wentz. I'm not poo-pooing on Nolan Patrick. I'm not poo-pooing on Mickey Moniak. I'm not poo-pooing on Markelle Fultz. I'm not poo-pooing on Jahlil Okafor. I'm not doing any of it. We all move on. We all just process things and we move on in our own way. And I just mentioned basketball. And I think it's probably really quick worth noting that Joel Embiid is looking pretty freaking good in some recently released images from the team. Embiid's looking kind of svelte. There's a non-zero chance here that Joel Embiid is going to come into camp looking pretty damn ready to play basketball. And I get it. I know that a lot of us have been burned. We have been told in the past that Jahlil Okafor is, or that, not Jahlil. We've been told in the past that Joel Embiid is in the best shape of his life, blah, blah, blah. He's going to be great. Everything's going to be hunky-dory. And the Sixers are going to compete, and everything's going to be great. Look at this picture of Joel Embiid with VJ Edgecombe. Now, VJ Edgecombe, pretty built dude. Standing next to Embiid. Embiid doesn't look fat here. Embiid doesn't look like a guy who has not been taking care of his body this offseason. And I'll take you to this one. Again, you're not going to get me to go on record and say that Joel Embiid is going to go out and have MVP season 2.0. You're not going to get me to say that Joel Embiid is going to be first team All-Pro. No. First team All-NBA. I'm not doing that. But if this is the shape that Joel Embiid is in right now, I feel significantly better about the Sixers' ability to maybe not totally fall apart this season. And I get it. The Sixers are always being held up by a couple of pieces of scotch tape. I get it. But there is a small part of me that really does hope we're going to somehow be able to see a somewhat healthy Joel Embiid, maybe a somewhat healthy Paul George. And I know it's ridiculous. I know. Tony Louis says Embiid went on the Lizzo diet. Here's the thing that I actually do wonder. I'm not saying, okay, I am not saying that Joel Embiid is on Ozempic. However, I am interested in knowing, can professional athletes in the offseason take Ozempic or similar medications, similar injections in the NBA? Is that a violation of the wellness policy? Because if not, can you imagine if like Zion Williamson shows up and looks svelte all of a sudden? You'd be like, holy shit, what? Ozempic. Embiid looks great right now. Hopefully that's going to carry through into the season. Jacob says Alvarado 2.0. I hope not. Yeah, we obviously hope not. I would be interested in knowing, though, like, is it a violation of the wellness policy? I really don't know. Last thing I want to get to. Philadelphia Flyers. We've been very slowly kind of building back into the Philadelphia Flyers talk because training camp opens this week. It's kind of a big deal. I think training camp actually opens tomorrow. I won't be there, but training camp for the Flyers opens tomorrow. I did get an email that I have a full season credential, so that's kind of fun. I wonder why that's happening. There's a lot of hope around the Flyers right now. But since we last spoke, the Flyers actually made a move in net. And it's not the move in net that some people have been arguing about online. The Flyers made a trade of a goalie that many of us had some fondness in our hearts for. And also, we got an update about another goalie that we didn't exactly know was going to come back to the U.S. And we got another update about a goalie who probably will not be returning to Philadelphia, point blank, period. Let's start with the trade of Ivan Fedotov, because the Iron Giant is a guy that I was a big fan of, a guy that this organization was a big fan of, a guy that this organization really did think a few years ago had the chance to push Carter Hart for time. And they really did believe in. And unfortunately, a few things kind of derailed his career. But the Flyers traded Ivan Fedotov and his remaining cap hit to Columbus. They got back a 6th-round pick. I want to go out to Danny Briere, who explained the move and ultimately why they decided to make the move. Because obviously, as soon as Fedotov gets traded, normal people think to themselves, oh, well, it's because they don't want to have 3 goalies at the AHL level. Crazy people are like, oh, this very clearly means they're clearing up a spot that they don't have for Carter Hart. Let's go out to Danny Briere and have him explain why they ultimately chose to trade Ivan Fedotov.
This is the first time we're talking to you since you traded Ivan the other day. What does that speak to the depth you have at the position? Were you just looking for roster, salary cap flexibility? Can you just take us through the thought mindset there?
A little bit of everything. One of the big thing is it helps, gives us a little bit more space, salary cap wise, because we were close. It gives us the option now of keeping a little bit more freely 23 roster players if we want to. And the fact is Carson Bjarnason turned.
Before he gets to this, Fedotov is a guy that I don't think they gave up on. Fedotov is a guy who I think ultimately got screwed by a whole bunch of different factors. Getting sent away for a year of military service in Russia did not help things. Him not having the ability to spend a year in like the AHL to develop as the Flyers probably would have wanted him to when he first got over here is probably part of that. They gave him a multi-million-dollar contract for multiple years, and they weren't going to have that guy sitting in the AHL. So he never really got to develop. Remember, his actual arrival to the U.S. came out of nowhere, and then he ended up in a goalie rotation at the NHL level. And I don't think he ever really had a fair shake. Even last year, you're looking at times where Kolosov and Fedotov, it's a really weird 3-ring circus because Erson's in there as well, and then Erson goes out a few times with groin injuries. No one ever actually had the opportunity to develop the appropriate way or to be able to put their stamp on the starting job, or even to be the lead backup and the number 1 backup for the entirety of a season. So I don't think Fedotov was ever really given much of an option. The problem is, age-wise, between him and Kolosov's like 6 years younger. You're probably going to stick with the guy that's owed less money, is younger, is viewed as like the more dynamic goalie. And you don't want to trade that guy away. Oh, and by the way, if you can clear up the space, and Danny talks about the roster flexibility, but if you can trade that cap number away, it just helps you in a whole lot of ways. It allows them to have Ryan Ellis on IR instead of season-ending LTIR. It gives them some help. Now let's go back to Danny.
Turning pro, he's a prospect that we want to develop, and having, two guys that were probably going to take ice time away from him in his development. We wanted to clear the path there a little bit for him to play. Obviously,
Bjarnason is a big part of this. As Danny just said, they believe in Bjarnason. They believe in allowing him to develop, and they want him to get a lot of games in at the AHL for the Phantoms. And there was no way to feasibly rotate 3 goalies at the AHL level. They were not going to do the 3 goalies at the NHL level again. And so ultimately something had to give. Now, could the Flyers have not signed Dan Vladar, had Kolosov be the backup at the NHL, or have Fedotov be the backup at the NHL level? Yes. Is it more likely that some combination of Briere, Jones, and Tocchet sat down and said, yo, we might not be a Stanley Cup contender, but we also don't want to be a bottom 5 team in the league again. We simply cannot allow an Ersson-Fedotov tandem to be what we go into a season with? I think it's probably pretty likely. And so you're not going to rotate 3 goalies at the AHL level. Fedotov's the one that would have helped the most in a lot of ways. I bet the Flyers would have gotten a better pick if they had traded Kolosov just because of the contract and the age. But you're able to move Fedotov. And Columbus wanted a goalie, and they got one.
See, now we see Kolosov as the number 3. But clearly now Carson will be the number 4, and will get some games and hopefully pushes and, earns more starts as the season goes by. So
and let's be really clear about this, and we'll take this down for a sec. Let's be really clear about something. Bjarnason doesn't have to be the starter at Lehigh Valley this year. Kolosov can end up getting, 2/3 of the games, maybe a little bit less. It's not going to be a 50-50 split. They want to see what Kolosov has. Because, if they look at Kolosov at his age, with most of a season in the AHL, and they say, no, this guy is, actually not bad. This guy can actually play and get a look at the NHL level. Maybe they do move off of a Dan Vladar. Maybe they do consider moving off of a Sam Ersson next offseason. And then maybe you do see an Alexei Kolosov end up at the NHL level. It's entirely possible. I don't think anybody in the organization right now looks at Kolosov and says, that guy is going to be a bona fide number 1. Not a soul. I do think they look at Kolosov and say, that guy can be a number 2. Yeah, he could be. But he needs seasoning, and he needs to play in the AHL. Last year was a mess. There are a whole bunch of factors that it seems led to Kolosov not playing in the AHL. And I think ultimately, if we just look at this from a macro view, and you compare this to what happens in other leagues with other players, could I envision a scenario where maybe, possibly, Alexei Kolosov and his camp, his agent, representatives, etc., they look at this last year and go, yo, we thought he was going to have a legitimate chance to be, the backup going into the 24-25 season. And then Fedotov came out of nowhere, was airdropped from a plane and ended up signing his contract before Kolosov could even get his visa. Remember when that happened? And they probably felt wow, we were kind of sold a certain situation, and now there's not even a path to that. Kolosov could have played another year in the KHL and then come over. The goal wasn't to play in the AHL, and that might have led to some friction between his camp and the Flyers. It seems like after last season being such a mess, somebody within Kolosov's camp, or maybe Kolosov himself, said, I can't do that again. I can't be part of a rotation again. But I really don't have a path back to the KHL because I signed this deal with the Flyers. I need to play wherever they need me to play. And ultimately, if he wants to have a career in the NHL, that's the way to go. Maybe there isn't going to be a scenario here where Alexei Kolosov does end up being the long-term backup for the Flyers, or think he has a chance to become the starter for the Flyers. Maybe it's just going to be something as simple as Kolosov goes, plays a season in the AHL, gets some games at the NHL level because there will be goalie injuries. There almost always are. And he puts up some good film, and there's a team that does ultimately trade for Kolosov. And the Flyers look at it and say, cool, Bjarnason got to play games, not have the pressure being the starter. Kolosov was the starter for a year. Then going into the 26th season, Bjarnason is the starter at Lehigh Valley. And maybe by that point, Zavragin comes over. Or by the 27th season, Zavragin comes over. They have this pipeline of goalies that they're very interested in and that they are very intrigued by and that they ultimately think are going to be part of the long-term vision of this team. They got to get something for Kolosov. So hopefully things work out. He plays at the AHL level. He plays really well. And maybe he does get a look at the NHL and we say, yo, good thing the Flyers didn't burn that bridge. Good thing Kolosov himself didn't burn that bridge. And he ended up being a good player. And maybe he plays well here and he gets another contract in Philadelphia, or he gets dealt somewhere and the Flyers get a good asset back. Who knows? I have to imagine that, good old Briere and company are going to kind of figure it out. This, by the way, is wild. Philly fan says, hurt hammy Sammy about Ersson. Hurt hammy Sammy is a bad bet to stay healthy. We will have Vladar and Kolosov for a 30-game stretch at some point. Not necessarily wrong. I mean, there is historical precedent here that Ersson's not going to be able to hold up to the full season load. Let's see. There was another thing that I wanted to get here, and I had the time marked. I'm gonna find it here. Let me see. Was it this one? It was this. I think it was around the Kolosov stuff. Let's go over to Danny again.
Earns more starts as the season goes by. So it clears up some space for our young guys. And, look, Kolosov was a rough season for him last year. Didn't play a lot. I don't need to go back into that situation, but, it's important for him to play a lot of games this year. He's still young. He's still, a prospect, and it kind of opens the door for him to play more games and to start probably in the American League and just find his game, find his confidence, find the swagger that we had seen from him the previous few seasons in the KHL.
And he's only 23. Like, that's the other thing that I think a lot of times maybe we kind of tend to forget is that Kolosov is only 23 years old. He's not an old player. So there was another thing that I wanted to get to from that press conference, and I'll find it at some point. But it had to do with another potential goalie. It had to do with a goalie that once played in Philadelphia, and it's a player that the fans have maybe been pushing for, a guy that they've been kind of considering bringing back. And if you remember, for a good long while, one of the things that I've been the most, outspoken about is I didn't think that the risk reward of Carter Hart was worth it. I didn't think that ultimately the risk reward of bringing him back was going to be worth the potential issues that could come with it, the PR disaster. Before we get to Carter, I do want to get to an update that Briere provided about Foerster, because Foerster and Risto are both going to start the season at different times. They're both going to be available at different times. So while I was kind of going through this, I remembered this was a thing that I wanted to get to really quickly. This is Risto.
We knew all along that he wouldn't start the season, but everything's moving and looking good for him to meet up with the team in hopefully the first month and a half, 2 months of the season at some point. So on that.
By the way, that's pretty crazy if you think about it, because when Risto got hurt, they were convinced it was day to day, right? And then became week to week. And now they're talking about the first month or two. Did I hear that correctly? Should we let's re-rack that a second? How long?
Meet up with the team in hopefully the first month and a half, 2 months of the season at some point.
Of the season, not like first month and a half or two, like starting with training camp. So it doesn't sound like Briere saying, oh, first month of being around the team, which would be training camp, September. he's saying first month and a half or 2 months of the season. That's Risto. That's a long time to be out. All right.
So on that front, it's trending in the right direction. Tyson, kind of the same thing there. He's in a non-contact jersey to start training camp, but within the first week, we should be able to remove that and have him, be able to take physicality and hopefully later in camp getting in some games if everything keeps going in the right direction. So pretty positive there.
So let's remember that there was a legitimate fear for a while that they were going to be without Foerster to start the season. Now they're still talking about like this non-contact jersey. They're still talking about the fact that like the thought is that he's not going to be ready for the start of training camp. He's skating with the team, which is good. But I don't exactly get the feeling that you're going to see Tyson Foerster. I don't expect him to be in a full contact scenario here until maybe the end of training camp. The real question is going to be whether or not Foerster is ready for the start of the season or not, and what this is going to look like. The scaling up of getting him back to playing quality, playing caliber is going to look like. So Foerster, it seems like, is somewhat good news. The Risto news is really, really weird. The Risto timeline is maybe even weirder. It also kind of puts a lot of doubt. It casts a ton of doubt around that defensive core. Now, at one point in this press conference, Danny does talk about Helge Grans and about Emil Andre. And so I guess if you're looking for a silver lining in not having Risto, it's that some of these young guys are going to get immediate reps at the NHL level again to start the season. The downside, obviously, is if you're a fan who wants to see the Flyers make the postseason and compete in a meaningful way, they're not going to be able to do that if they have a wildly young defensive core. Now, they did sign 2 veteran depth guys to have this season, probably to be maybe the 6 and 7 or be the 7, and I don't know exactly what the other guy would be, but there are a lot of questions around this team, at least at the blue line. Now, the last thing that was, I guess, the most interesting about Briere and his availability was what was going on with Carter Hart. And I touched on this a little bit ago, but they're not bringing Carter Hart back. And I don't necessarily think it's because the Flyers aren't interested in Carter Hart. I think it's because Carter Hart's not interested in coming back here. And it feels like a lot of people have been kind of framing the argument about whether or not to bring Hart back based on the idea of, will the Flyers want to bring him back, as if the Flyers were in some kind of a power position here. And they're just not. Hart ultimately is going to get to choose his next team. And what ended up coming up is they had the conversation about would he be open to returning to the team. And what Briere ultimately landed on and what his agent said is that he ain't coming back. That is a reunion is not happening. So here's the quote from Danny Briere specifically. This is Danny talking about the conversation between Hart's agent, his representative, and the Flyers. Here it is.
Comment I'll make on that is that his representative, Judd Moldaver, has reached out and kind of told us that in light of everything that happened in the last year and a half with Carter, they felt and Carter felt that it was better for them to look for a fresh start. So that's where it's at, and it's the only comment I'm going to make on it.
So then let's be really clear. Like, again, this is where the frustration comes from, right? I think I've been saying on this show for months. I mean, it's not like it's Danny goes out and says that publicly, and now the day after, Russ reacts to it and says, I'm not surprised. I've been saying for months, there's virtually no chance that Carter Hart comes back to the Flyers. And not that it's because the Flyers don't want him back, because Lord knows There are people in that front office and that organization that wanted to bring Carter Hart back. It never made sense for me that Hart was going to want to come back to this team. Look at it for a whole myriad of reasons. One reason, the team playing in front of him. He's now missed, and he will have, they're not going to be eligible to play until I think December. He will have missed almost 2 seasons, 2 full years from the time that he had to walk away from hockey till he's able to actually take the ice as an NHL goalie again. Why would you come to a team that is maybe just starting to pull the nose up on a rebuild? Why would you come to a team that doesn't have a legitimate veteran-laden defensive core in front of you? Why would you do that? You wouldn't. Why would you come back to a team that didn't issue you a qualifying offer? Now, we've had this argument on the show. If the league told the Flyers you cannot give him a qualifying offer, then the Flyers should be pushing the league for compensation. I've also been very consistent about that for months. If the Flyers were told don't issue a qualifying offer to a pending restricted free agent, they should be fighting for compensation. They won't get it. If the Flyers proactively chose not to give him a qualifying offer, well, okay, then that sticks in the crawl of Carter Hart and his representatives. That you could have done a show of good faith, that you believed the player and that you intended on having this player when he comes back, yada, yada, yada. Okay. Why would you go back to a team whose fan base is acutely aware of the Hockey Canada trial? Now, not every Philadelphia sports fan knows the explicit details of what was brought up in testimony and the trial. Not even every Flyers fan is acutely aware of everything that happened with the trial. But a good number of Flyers fans are aware. Carter Hart went away. There was a trial. The trial was for XYZ. Not ideal. He was found not guilty. The end. Why would you go back to a fan base that has been aware of this for years? Why would you go back to a big media market with very highly scrutinous media? Those are 4 strikes against Philadelphia. It never made sense to me that he would want to come back here. The Flyers could have wanted him as much as anybody could have wanted any player. I don't think there was ever a chance he was going to come back. And now you've effectively had it publicly stated. It was said by a few of the national media people like a week or 2 ago. Friedman said it. Sarah Valli said it. And they have Danny Briere on record saying he wants a fresh start. So Carter Hart will be back in the NHL this year. He will not be in net for the Flyers. I threw out some teams a while back. I think Carolina was one of them. That could be in play. Could a Vegas be a team that's in play? The Utah Mammoth has been kind of thrown out there as a possibility. I could see Utah making sense. He's from Edmonton. I don't think he's going to go play in Canada. I don't think a lot of these guys, I don't think any of the 5 from the Hockey Canada trial are going to want to go play in Canada because everyone is very aware of that trial. If you're from the western side of the continent and you can go to a media market that isn't going to go after you very much in Utah, and you're going to have a brand new fan base, right, that doesn't have any of the baggage, that doesn't have any of the dark cloud of the past kind of hovering over it, Utah makes a lot of sense. Vegas could make a lot of sense. We'll see where he ends up, but he's not coming back here. And so if you've been one of those people who's been holding out hope, right? If you've been holding out hope that the Flyers are going to reunite with Carter Hart, your hopes have been dashed. Get ready for a very steady dose of Sam Ersson, Dan Vladar, and Alexei Kolosov at some point this season. See, that's a little bit of positive, right? Good positive to end the show on. Yeah, JH says Utah has said they have no interest in him. I guess we'll see. I did not see that, but okay. Well, Vegas it is. I guess we'll find out. That was a long show. My voice is shot, but I think I have defeated the flu. I'm stronger than the flu. I need like Chris Christie to give me a big hug. Stronger than the storm, stronger than the flu. Oh, yeah. All right. I'll be back on Friday with the Russ Joy Show. Until then, I've been Russ Joy. Do me a favor. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe on YouTube, the Russ Joy Show. If you find the Joy Media channel, you can also like and share and subscribe from there. If you find the show on X or Facebook, you can like it there. If you like listening in the podcast feed, You can find this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora. If you like to watch your podcasts on Spotify, I got good news for you. The Russ Joy Show is now available in video form on Spotify. I'd prefer you to watch it on, YouTube, but you could go watch it on Spotify. It's totally fine too. I think that's it. We are out of our ban on TikTok. Short form content lives on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube Shorts, as well as TikTok. If you see any of those videos pop up on your feed, give it a like, maybe comment, maybe share. I don't know. Let's all be nice to each other, shall we? Let's shall. Until Friday, this has been the Russ Joy Show, and I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart, and it's also the name of the show. I have no voice left, but I have plenty of passion and love in my heart. I pass it along to you, and I will see all of you on Friday here on the Russ Joy Show. Bye now.